If you don't learn to master yourself, others will do it for you. That's the first and most vital rule for living a grounded life. How many times have we sacrificed our inner peace just to salvage a relationship already falling apart? How often have we bent ourselves out of shape to be liked, to be accepted, only to end up feeling empty and alone? Here's the truth. You don't need to chase anyone. You weren't born to please the world. You are here to become the strongest and freest version of yourself. This video isn't about playing mind games. It's a reminder of the worth you've forgotten and the strength you still carry. The 10 Stoic principles that follow aren't lofty philosophies. They are a compass for navigating fragile relationships, tender emotions, and invisible pressures. When you rule your inner world, the outer one loses its power to wound you. So don't scroll past. Listen with your whole heart, because in the next few minutes, your life might just turn in a direction you never imagined. 1. Make others afraid to lose you. We often overlook a fundamental truth. People only value what they fear losing. That's why the relationships where you're always available, always accommodating, always chasing, are often the ones where you feel the smallest, the most easily dismissed. It's not because you lack worth, but because you haven't yet learned how to express it properly. And in Stoic terms, a person's value isn't determined by how others treat them, but by how they treat themselves first. When you live without boundaries, without principles, and try to keep someone by offering unconditional sacrifice, you unintentionally become someone they can take or leave. It's harsh, but it's true. People don't fail to appreciate you because they're cruel. They do so because you've given them no reason to do otherwise. Intrinsic value isn't declared by constant presence, but by the power to step away at the right moment. When you're not afraid to walk out of someone's life, only then do they begin to seriously consider what it means to keep you in theirs. A Stoic understands no one owes you love or kindness. Precisely because of that, we must become stronger, steadier, and principle-driven. We can't control others' thoughts, feelings, or actions, but what we can control is how much we depend on them. And the moment you break free from that dependency, something strange happens. Others start to see you differently. They sense you're not easily held. They realize you could leave at any time, and suddenly, they worry. They fear losing someone who knows their worth and won't stay just to avoid being alone. Perhaps one of the greatest turning points in personal growth is the moment you truly believe, I am whole. I don't need someone else to complete me. Once that belief takes root, you stop behaving out of lack. You no longer need daily texts to feel loved. You stop craving hollow compliments to feel valuable. You're no longer hesitant to say no or to walk away from something unhealthy because you understand you are not an option waiting to be chosen. You are a treasure others will regret losing. We must realize that attraction doesn't come from looks, wealth, or talent. It radiates from the energy of someone who stands independent. A person who doesn't fear losing anyone becomes the most grounded, trustworthy, and magnetic presence in the room. The one who remains steady when doors close is the one others want beside them in a storm. And to become that person, we must first learn to walk alone, not out of pride, but out of maturity. Think back to someone from your past, the one you always felt you could lose at any moment, that anxious, breathless feeling. That's why you never took them lightly. Now reverse it. If you live with clarity, principles, and self-command, others will feel that same weight in your presence, not because you manipulate, but because you show them, I won't stay where I'm not respected. And when those words are lived, not spoken, they carry the force of 100 declarations out there. The world is full of people losing themselves out of fear of losing someone else. But the Stoic is different. They are willing to let go of what no longer fits in order to preserve the dignity within. And when you live that way, others begin to see you are not someone who needs them. You are someone they cannot afford to lose, not through clinging, but through respect. So if you're in a relationship that makes you question your own worth, ask yourself, if I walked away, would they feel the loss? If the answer is no, then maybe you've stayed too long, and maybe it's time you started living like someone others don't want to lose, not for them, but for yourself, too. Don't be easy. Let them invest in you. There's a simple truth few dare to face. What comes easily is often taken for granted. We tend to believe that the more we give, the more we accommodate in relationships, the more we'll be loved and kept. But in the end, we're often the ones abandoned, overlooked, and undervalued because we made ourselves too easy to reach. And from that place, we learned a lesson the Stoics knew thousands of years ago. If you want to be respected, you must require others to invest in you. No one truly cherishes what they didn't have to earn, sacrifice for, or strive to keep. Think of it as a universal law of human psychology. You may like a surprise gift, but you'll value far more the thing you spent weeks or even months working toward, saving for, or searching to find. That's human nature. We don't just love what we have. We love what it took to get it. That's why, if you want to be valued, you must allow others to pour their time, emotions, and energy into their connection with you. Once they have invested, they'll want to keep you, because you're no longer just a person. You're effort, sacrifice, and something they don't want to lose. But how do you avoid being too easy without becoming cold or distant? The Stoic understands that boundaries aren't walls. They are shields for dignity. You don't need to act superior. You only need to know your worth. If someone walks into your life without proving anything, showing no seriousness, overcoming no challenge or condition, they'll walk out just as effortlessly. And the issue isn't that they're unworthy. It's that you didn't make them pause to reflect before stepping in. Letting others invest in you isn't a game of control. It simply means you don't rush to trust. You don't open up too quickly, and you don't tear down your boundaries for the sake of fleeting emotions. Because the Stoic knows feelings are temporary, but the cost of trusting the wrong person can last. So you must observe patiently to see whether someone truly wants to walk beside you or is just passing through to fill their own void. Imagine yourself as a rare garden. Many may admire, but not everyone gets to enter. To do so, they must prove they are worthy, not with words, but with consistency, patience, and their respect for the rules you've set. When they invest real effort into the relationship, be it friendship, pasif, or work, they take greater responsibility for your presence in their life. And if they want you without offering anything in return, what they are really after is convenience, not value. Not being easy may cost you a few short-term connections, but in return, you gain long-term respect. More importantly, you preserve yourself. The Stoic doesn't seek approval from the crowd. They seek resonance with the worthy, and that kind of connection is never born from ease. It comes from principled selection, from uncompromising self-respect, from the quiet decision to allow only the deserving into your inner world. So if you find yourself giving too much and receiving too little, pause and ask, am I letting them invest in me, or am I giving everything away for free? You don't have to lock your heart, but place a gate with a key, and those who truly mean it will find a way through. With patience and sincerity, that's not strategy, it's dignity. And from that place, you become more valuable than ever, not because someone chose you, but because you chose yourself. 3. Put yourself first. In a society that glorifies sacrifice, excessive kindness, and putting others first, it's easy to confuse goodness with self-erasure. Always yielding, always prioritizing others' feelings, always pushing aside your own needs. But the question is, how much can you give if you're empty inside? How can you love anyone fully if you constantly deny yourself? A Stoic understands that no one can find true peace without starting from within. And to do that, you must learn to put yourself first, not out of selfishness, but because you are the foundation upon which all healthy relationships are built. Putting others before yourself may sound noble, but unchecked, it leads to something more dangerous: the loss of inner worth. When you constantly agree to what you don't want, stay silent when you're hurt, or accept less than you deserve just to keep the peace, you're sending a message to the world: I don't matter, and the world will respond accordingly. Others treat you the way you treat yourself. If you allow yourself to be overlooked, diminished, or used, sooner or later, you'll be treated as disposable, as a backup option, as someone easily replaced. Putting yourself first doesn't mean pushing others away. It means having the courage to say, this is my limit, this is what I deserve, and I won't accept anything less. That takes strength, because you'll no longer be the one who pleases everyone. You'll be misunderstood. You'll be judged as cold, distant, or difficult. But the truth is, those with clear boundaries live more peacefully, suffer less, and are respected more. Not because they seek pity, but because they demand fairness. We were never taught how to love ourselves properly. We were raised in a culture of try to please, always think of others, and don't be selfish. But there's a fine line between compassion and self-destruction. The Stoics don't teach us to live selfishly. They teach us to live by values, and those values begin with knowing what we are worthy of and having the courage to reject what harms our spirit, dignity, or growth. When you put yourself first, toxic relationships begin to fall away, not because you push them out, but because they no longer hold power over you. Those who only wanted your vulnerability, your compliance, your emotional availability, will no longer find you easy to access. But more importantly, the right people will draw closer because they sense something genuine in you. They see someone who won't be swayed, who can't be manipulated, and who won't trade their identity for acceptance. And that kind of person draws others not out of need, but out of respect. Putting yourself first is also an act of recovery. After every wound, failure, or betrayal, it's you who must rise and heal. No one else can do that for you. So why not choose to rise from the beginning by living as though you are the most important person in your own life? Think about it. If you treated yourself like a best friend, a child worth protecting, a sacred space to guard, would you allow just anyone to violate those boundaries? The Stoic doesn't see emotions as irrelevant. They simply don't let emotions override their values. Putting yourself first isn't a feeling, it's a principle. When you place yourself at the center, it doesn't mean you are cut off from the world. It means you've built a stable reference point from which to meet the world with clarity, strength, and purpose. In the end, remember this: you cannot expect others to respect you if you keep allowing yourself to be diminished. Every major life change begins with one small decision to live as if you are the only one who gets to define how you deserve to make that decision. There is no better day than today, no one more worthy than you, and no one else who can begin except you. 4. Don't always be the one who starts the conversation. There's a truth we often try to ignore. If you're always the one to text first, call first, or initiate every conversation, that relationship is likely being sustained from only one side. And the most painful part is that you may still comfort yourself with thoughts like, they're just busy, they're quiet, or it's okay if I care more. But deep down, you know, the feeling of being an afterthought in someone's life is not a pleasant one. And one of the clearest signs of imbalance in a relationship is when you're always the one to start the conversation, and they only respond out of habit, obligation, or worse, reluctance. The Stoic doesn't seek attention. They don't force their presence into someone's life at all costs. They understand that no relationship, be it friendship or love, can thrive when only one side is trying. If you're the only one initiating, the only one caring about the connection, the only one worried by the silence, then the truth is, the other person is not investing in you as much as you are in them. And when that pattern repeats, it not only hurts you, it slowly erodes your self-respect. Stopping, choosing not to speak first, is not always about anger or punishment. Sometimes it's an act of awakening. It's the moment you begin to ask, if I don't reach out, would anyone still need my presence? And while the answer might sting, it's the truth you need to hear. It allows you to see that relationship for what it really is, instead of clinging to an illusion sustained by your own initiative. Because sometimes you're not the important one. You're just the convenient one. Don't get it wrong. Being proactive is a good thing. It shows care, sincerity, and courage in communication. But when your constant initiation is met with disproportionate response, it stops being kindness and becomes blind. The Stoic won't allow their goodwill to be wasted. They offer care selectively, with principle and clarity, because they know that emotional energy is a form of currency, and you can't keep pouring it into a cup that's turned upside down. You might feel empty when you stop being the one to initiate it. The conversations that used to happen daily may suddenly cease. The messages you used to receive, only because you always spoke first, will no longer appear. But let that silence speak the truth you've been avoiding. Because the moment you stop trying to hold on, you start to see who's actually holding on to you, and who simply assumed you'd always be there. Learning not to text first, not to call first, not to always ask the first question is a difficult lesson, because it forces you to face the fear of being forgotten. But within that fear, you'll discover freedom. Freedom from one-sided connections. Freedom from the role of the one who cares first to be cared for in return. Freedom from the version of yourself that depended on others' responses to feel worthy. And when you enter new relationships with this mindset, you'll stop forcing yourself to be the initiator of every bond. You'll allow others to show their desire to be in your life. You'll observe instead of clinging. You'll respond instead of initiating. If the relationship proves to be truly mutual, and when that happens, every time someone reaches out to you, it will carry real meaning, not because it's rare, but because it comes from willingness, not duty. The Stoic lives by truth. They don't uphold illusions. If someone doesn't remember you, doesn't reach for you, doesn't make the effort to stay connected, it's not your fault, and you don't need to fix it by doing their part. Let the silence speak, and if that silence lingers too long, maybe it's the kind of emptiness you're meant to leave unwatched, rather than fill it with yourself. 5. Be willing to walk away when you're not expected. There's a kind of pain that doesn't come from direct insults, but from prolonged indifference, from being dismissed, ignored, and repeatedly treated in ways that reveal your presence holds little value to someone else. You send messages that go unanswered. You show up, and no one notices. You offer your thoughts, and they were brushed aside. You express your feelings, and they are treated as a nuisance. And slowly, you begin to ask yourself, am I asking for too much? But the truth is, you're not. You're asking for the most basic thing every human being deserves: respect. Respect is not a luxury. It's not a privilege. It's the bare minimum. And if a relationship, be it friendship, love, work, or family, lacks respect, then it's already rotting from within. A Stoic doesn't wait for the collapse to walk away. They observe, they listen, they feel. And when they realize they're being diminished, they don't explode, retaliate, or try to fix the other person. They simply walk away, quietly but firmly, because they understand that staying where you are no longer valued is the quickest way to lose yourself. Many stay, hoping the other person will change, fearing loneliness, believing they are not good enough, thinking that with more patience, more kindness, more endurance, things will get better. But the Stoic does not believe in fixing disrespect with self-sacrifice. They know respect cannot be demanded. It must be given freely. If someone only treats you kindly when you are silent, agreeable, and non-disruptive, that's not respect. That's control dressed in the disguise of decency. Being willing to walk away isn't coldness. It is self-respect in its highest form. When you have the courage to leave a space where you've invested time, emotion, and hope, you're sending a powerful message. I will not trade my dignity just to keep someone's presence in my life. That act not only forces others to reconsider how they've treated you, it brings you closer to the stronger, more sovereign version of yourself. Walking away is never easy. It means facing the fear of loss, loneliness, emptiness, and self-doubt. But once you move through that threshold, you'll realize this: the peace you've been searching for never lived inside a relationship full of wounds. It has always begun within. The decision to never again allow anyone to make you feel small. And the beauty is, once you walk away from where there is no respect, you begin to attract something else. People who recognize your true worth. Relationships built on sincerity and mutual regard. Spaces where you can simply be yourself, without effort, without pretending, without shrinking. Because this world is not lacking kind people. You just haven't left the shadows long enough to see them. The Stoic does not fear solitude, because they know the deepest loneliness isn't being alone. It's being unseen while standing next to someone else. So if you're in a relationship that makes you question yourself, constantly justifying, apologizing, or trying harder than is reasonable, maybe it's time to stop, step back, look clearly, and ask, am I still respected here? If the answer is no, don't be afraid. You have every right to leave. Not because you're hard or harsh, but because you're clear-eyed enough to not remain where your worth is no longer honored. Remember, walking away isn't the end. It's a beginning of a chapter where you no longer bargain yourself to keep what's beneath you. A beginning of a life where you are the one who chooses, not the one waiting to be chosen. A beginning of a mindset in which your self-respect is never up for negotiation, because you are worth more than that. Always. 6. Preserve the mystery. In today's world, where everyone shares everything online, from their breakfast to their heartbreak, mystery has become a rare and powerful form of strength. When you don't overshare, when you don't reveal your entire life upon first meeting, you create a space that invites curiosity, reflection, and a slower, deeper kind of attention. And in that space, attraction begins to form. The Stoic understands this well. They feel no need to explain themselves, to rush to prove their worth, or to seek sympathy through storytelling. They let their actions speak, let time reveal their nature, and allow silence to become a dwelling place for inner power. Keeping part of yourself hidden doesn't mean pretending or playing mind games. It's a form of self-control at its highest level. When you know what you think, what you feel, what you're going through, and still choose to hold back, not from fear, but from the awareness that not everyone deserves access to the innermost corners of your soul. That is a mature and powerful restraint. A person who always reveals everything, who always talks and discloses without filter, doesn't always create closeness. In fact, they often leave nothing left to discover. And what binds us to someone long-term is rarely what we know from the start. It's the feeling that there is still more to learn about this person. Some people capture attention simply by showing up. They are not flashy, loud, or talkative. They are quiet, reserved, perhaps even distant. But precisely that silence compels others to wonder, what are they thinking? Who are they really? Why don't they talk as much as others? And from that curiosity, people begin to notice the expressions, the gestures, the smallest words. The Stoic never rushes to give all the answers. They understand what arrives too quickly leaves just as fast. What is easily gained is easily discarded. What remains mysterious, what demands exploration, is what endures in someone's mind. A deep soul takes time to be understood, and keeping part of yourself private isn't just a communication strategy. It's a way of life that protects your inner world. In an age where judgment is quick, scrutiny is constant, and criticism is casual, knowing how to guard your pain, dreams, and private values becomes an act of self-preservation. Because the more access others have to your life, the more control they can exert over your emotions. And a Stoic never allows anyone to govern their emotions except themselves. Mystery is also a way to filter people. Those who are impatient, shallow, or merely looking for amusement will quickly walk away. They lack the endurance. But those with depth, sincerity, and the desire to truly understand you, they will stay, even if you say little. And those are the connections worth keeping. Mystery prevents you from being consumed by the machinery of exposure. It allows you to preserve what is sacred, known only to you, and revealed only to those truly worthy. Imagine yourself as a high mountain, difficult to climb, but worth the effort. Everyone can see the grandeur from afar, but only the brave, the persistent, the quiet listeners, those who respect the silence and value the depth, can reach the summit. You don't need to shout to be seen. Just stand your ground in silence, and those meant to find you will. Not because you've demanded attention, but because you've shown you are not easily grasped, and therefore not easily dismissed. The Stoic chooses silence not because they have nothing to say, but because they speak only when it matters. They don't share to fill the void. They don't reveal to win favor. They preserve the mystery as a living declaration. I don't need to be understood immediately, and I don't need to be loved for being predictable, because they know what is rare is valuable. And those with depth have no need to voice everything to prove they are worthy. 7. Happiness is self-created. True happiness doesn't come from anything external. It doesn't depend on someone's presence, on praise, on money, on social status, or on anything that can be taken away by time. The most lasting kind of happiness is the kind that arises from within. The ability to feel whole regardless of what's happening around you. And this isn't just an idealistic saying. It's a way of living the Stoics emphasized thousands of years ago. They understood that if you place your joy in someone else's hands, you also give them the power to take it away whenever they choose. In contrast, when you learn to generate happiness from within, you're no longer easily shaken by others' words, actions, or absence. We live in an era where joy is often linked to what comes from outside. A beautiful vacation, an ideal relationship, a new phone, a dream job. But then those things change, fade, or fail to arrive, and we find ourselves deflated. as if happiness was something someone else could take away. That's the dangerous trap of dependency. The Stoic doesn't reject life's pleasures, but they don't see them as the root of happiness. To them, a mind that knows sufficiency, practices gratitude, and governs itself is the true foundation of inner peace. They don't fight their circumstances. They train themselves to adapt, to stay steady even when life doesn't go their way. The practice of self-created happiness begins with the smallest things. It's the ability to enjoy a quiet morning, a warm cup of tea, a good book. It's being able to be alone without feeling lonely, to think clearly without being drowned out by the noise of the world, to find inspiration from within without needing external stimulation. When you can sit still and feel satisfied simply because you are alive, breathing, and have one more chance to act with kindness, you've already stepped into the world of the truly free. Free from expectations, from comparisons, from the pressure to achieve something just to feel good enough. The Stoic trains this daily. They don't wait for positivity to arrive from the outside. They proactively cultivate the mental state they wish to live in by managing their thoughts, by choosing response over reaction, by focusing on what they can control instead of lamenting what they can't. And the remarkable thing is, when you live this way, you're not just happier, you also become more dependable, more grounded, more magnetic, because no one is drawn to neediness, but everyone feels at ease around someone who radiates self-reliance, calm, and quiet strength. To create your own happiness doesn't mean you reject sadness. The Stoic doesn't run from negative emotions. They face them, acknowledge them, and then place them where they belong. They understand that sorrow is a natural part of the human journey, but prolonged suffering is a choice. And if you can choose your thoughts, your emotions, your response, then you can also choose peace over anger, gratitude over complaint, action over helplessness. And every one of those small choices is a step toward self-made happiness. Ultimately, happiness doesn't come from someone telling you that you're worthy. It comes from the moment you realize you've always been worthy, whether someone is by your side or not, whether today brings success or failure, whether others recognize you or don't even see you. You know who you are, why you live, and can make yourself smile each morning. Then no one can take that wholeness from you. That's the kind of happiness no one can give and no one can steal, because it belongs to you and you alone. 8. Don't orbit around them. Orbit around your passion. One of the most common mistakes we fall into in relationships is turning someone into the center of our universe. We love them, admire them, need them so much that every schedule, every emotion, every small or major decision starts to revolve around whether they are happy or upset, staying or leaving, attentive or drifting away. And slowly, we stop living our own life and start living as a reflection of someone else's presence. What's most frightening isn't that they might leave, but that when they do, you'll realize you lost yourself long ago. A Stoic doesn't allow that to happen. They understand that no one, not even the person you love most, deserves to become the gravitational center that pulls you off your course, because the only thing you truly control is yourself. Your thoughts, your actions, your choices, and your direction. When you spend all your energy maintaining a connection with someone else, you gradually drain the energy meant for yourself, and that leaves you empty, exhausted, and dependent. Not because the other person is harmful, but because you've unplugged from your own source and connected to theirs, hoping it lasts long enough to keep your life lit. Instead of orbiting someone else, the Stoic chooses to revolve around passion, purpose, and inner strength. They understand that a meaningful life isn't built on the presence of another person, It's built on moving towards something greater than the self. Passion doesn't have to be a grand career or world-changing mission. It's simply the thing that excites you each morning, that you do without needing recognition, that brings you back to yourself each time you engage with it. When you have passion, you become your own star system, with your own gravity, your own orbit, your own light, and that makes others gravitate toward you, not because they are your reason to exist, but because you already shined. If you've found yourself checking your phone to see if they've texted, canceling personal plans in case they were suddenly free, giving up hobbies, routines, or even dreams just to keep them from drifting away, then you've likely been orbiting around them too much. And here's the paradox. The more you revolve around someone, the more they may feel the urge to walk away, because no one truly wants to stay with someone who disappears just to hold on to them. The Stoic does the opposite. They're magnetic, precisely because they don't depend. They don't chase approval, don't beg to be kept, don't trade themselves for someone's presence. And that makes them different, grounded, dignified, and powerful. A person with passion is never idle, never waiting for someone else to make life feel meaningful. They create it daily, through the work they love, the books they read, the workouts they commit to, the ideas they nurture, or simply through the quiet belief that they are walking their own path, not borrowing light from anyone else. And you know what happens when you live that way? People begin to want to be near you, not because you need them, but because you are whole, independent, and unwavering. When you center your life around passion, you gain clarity. You know what you must do today, why you do it, and what your efforts are leading toward. And in that journey, you become more resilient in rejection, less heartbroken in silence, and less desperate when others don't return you. You are living to grow, not just to be kept. Finally, don't get it wrong. We can still love, still connect, still open our hearts with sincerity. But make sure that even if they leave, you still have a full life, a solid center, and a reason to keep moving forward. No one should be the sole reason you feel your life has meaning. That meaning has always been within you. You just have to remember it and live it. 9. Don't always be available. One of the most common mistakes people make in relationships is being constantly available, ready to reply instantly to every message, to rearrange your schedule just to meet someone, to drop everything for a call, filled with endless complaints, to forgive without question, to yield, to show up whenever needed, never saying no. But the truth is, when you're always there, always predictable, always without boundaries, you begin to lose your value, because human psychology works this way. What is always available is easily overlooked, and what is always present is assumed will never be lost. And you, consciously or not, end up becoming just another given in someone else's life. A Stoic never allows themselves to become a prisoner of unconditional availability. They understand that scarcity, in healthy measure, creates value. They don't trade their precious time, personal space, or inner peace just to earn the title of a good person, because they know kindness doesn't mean being exploitable. Being helpful doesn't mean never tiring, and being there when it matters doesn't mean being there all the time. They set clear boundaries and don't compromise their inner principles just because someone else's emotions are urgent. And that's what makes them reliable. Not because they're always present, but because when they are, it's intentional, not obligatory. When you're always available, you silently send the message that nothing in your life is more important than catering to others. And once people believe you have no direction, no purpose, no passion, they unconsciously lower your value. This isn't out of malice. It's just how perception works. What's easy to access, he says, is rarely treasured. In contrast, someone who knows how to say no, who declines invitations that don't align, who prioritizes their own focus instead of flashing a constant green light, commands more respect because they live with direction, with purpose, with priorities, and that makes every moment of their presence carry weight and meaning. A Stoic doesn't live based on other people's feelings. They don't get swept into the vortex of always on, just to be accepted. They understand that missing a call, delaying a reply, or turning down a last-minute plan doesn't diminish their worth. On the contrary, it signals that they honor their time, preserve their inner reserves, and are aligned with goals beyond the fleeting needs of others. Because if you don't learn to prioritize yourself, the world will always place you last. Not being constantly available is also a powerful way to reveal who truly values you. You take a step back when you don't reply right away, when you say, "I'm busy right now." Who stays? Who still reaches out with respect, effort, and genuine interest? And who starts to fade, ignore, or even blame you? In that temporary absence, the truth emerges. Who's drawn to you as a person and who's merely attached to the convenience you offer? Don't let your kindness become a 24/7 customer service. Don't let your willingness become a trap that quietly drains you. Don't believe that constant presence is the way to make someone stay. Presence has value only when it's rooted in choice, not routine. The Stoic isn't afraid of being misunderstood. They know clarity always arrives in the end. And if you fear that not being available will cause someone to leave, then perhaps that's exactly the person who needs to go first. In the end, learn to let others wait for you. Learn to be absent without guilt. Learn to place yourself at the center of your own life without shame. Because if you don't, who will do it for you? You don't need to always be there to be loved. You just need to be steady enough to know when you show up, it's because you chose to. And that's exactly what makes your presence valuable in this world. 10. Don't be ruled by emotion. Emotion is what makes us human, but it's also what makes us most vulnerable. Emotions can lift you to the heights of inspiration or drag you into the depths of despair. A kind word can brighten your entire day, while a single indifferent glance can steal your sleep for nights. That's why the Stoics constantly remind us, don't be ruled by emotion. Not because emotion is banalsvit, but because if you don't learn to master it, it will steer you like a rudderless ship in stormy seas. When emotion takes the wheel, you act impulsively, say what shouldn't be said, and make poor decisions based on fleeting feelings. So many relationships fall apart. So many opportunities are lost. So many wounds are inflicted in moments where emotion eclipses reason. The Stoic doesn't reject emotion. They acknowledge it, observe it, but don't rush to act on it. They build space between feeling and response. And in that space lies the foundation of maturity. You're allowed to be angry, to feel disappointed, to be sad. There's nothing wrong with that. What matters is that you don't let those emotions become your identity. You don't let a moment of rage turn you into someone bitter. You don't let a single rejection convince you that you're unworthy. You don't let yesterday's sorrow obscure today's light. The Stoic views emotions like clouds, passing, temporary. They don't define the ski and your ski. Your mind, your reason, your clarity deserves to remain clear, not covered in prolonged darkness. Don't become dependent on emotion, because emotion is the easiest thing to manipulate. A few words in a message, a social media post, someone forgetting your birthday. It's all enough to convince you that you're unboothist or unimportant. But the truth is, most of what you feel doesn't reflect reality. Emotions are shaped by memory, expectation, past trauma, and wounds that haven't healed. If you don't learn to step back and ask, is this real or just my reaction? You'll be trapped in a loop of doubt, anxiety, and overreaction. The Stoic trains the mind like a muscle. They don't lash out in anger. They don't speak when out of control. They don't decide when their mood is unstable. They pause, they write, they walk, breathe deeply, reconsider, because they know a few minutes of delay during emotional spikes can prevent years of damage. And in that pause lies a power greater than any outburst, the power of self-mastery. If you want to live in peace, you don't need to eliminate emotion. You just need to change its position in your system. Don't let it take the driver's seat. Let it ride shotgun. As a companion who sometimes speaks, sometimes stays silent, but never detests the route. When you live this way, you stop being swept into drama. Stop being offended by trivial words. Stop drowning in unrealistic expectations. You start living with intention. And every action becomes a choice, not a reaction. And finally, remember, emotion isn't evil. It only becomes dangerous when it takes control. Just as fire can warm or destroy, emotion can be a tool or a burden. It depends on how you use it. The Stoic chooses to use emotion as a tool. Nothing more, nothing less. They don't depend on others to feel joy. And they don't lose their way when adversity hits. They stand like a mountain in the storm, not because they lack emotion, but because they know mastering emotion is the highest form of freedom a human can attain. I used to think that living by Stoic principles meant becoming cold, detached, and emotionless. But the more I learned and practiced, the more I understood. Stoicism isn't about denying emotion. It's about placing emotion where it belongs, so it doesn't rule your life. What changed me the most wasn't some grand philosophy, but the smallest things. I stopped reacting immediately when angry. I learned to stay silent instead of rushing to explain. I no longer forced myself to reply instantly just to preserve a relationship. And I began spending more time listening to myself. In seemingly ordinary situations, being rejected, ignored, or feeling inferior to someone, rather than tormenting myself like before, I now quietly remind myself I still have the power to choose my response, and that matters more than any fleeting feeling. Stoicism isn't a philosophy reserved for kings or distant ancient thinkers. It's a map for anyone who wants to live with more calm, more resilience, and less distraction from what doesn't truly matter. We cannot control the world, but we can absolutely control ourselves. And once you do that well, life changes more than you think. If you've stayed with me until this moment, I believe there's a part of you that's ready to live differently, more consciously, more strongly, and without letting emotions or others define your worth. The principles of Stoicism aren't meant to be memorized. They are meant to be lived daily, one small step at a time. You don't need to transform your entire life overnight. Just begin with a single choice. Starting today, I will master myself a little more. And if this video resonated with you, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss more reflections on Stoicism, inner strength, and the journey to inner freedom, where we grow together, quietly but powerfully. See you in the next video.